Welcome to Airgun Extra, brought to you in association with Crackshot, the Southwest's premier airgun centre and ranges. In this week's episode, we're taking a look at a brilliant little brake barrel in the shape of the BSA Meteor CLX. Before that though, I'm out on my grey squirrel control rounds and I'm sharing a few tips to explain how I go about optimising my chances when using a bait station. Well, I'm going to be out controlling grey squirrels today. Now the squirrels here are causing numerous problems. Typically the tree damage through their bark stripping, but also robbing from songbirds' nests. So they're taking eggs and in some instances chicks too from the nests of songbirds. Now I want to just talk a little bit about the principles that I use for grey squirrel control, because I think a lot of people mistakenly think that it's probably just a winter pursuit, particularly if you're using feed stations. And I think people think, oh, in the winter there's not much natural food around, that's when it works best. In all honesty, springtime can be just as effective. It can be quite a lean spell for squirrels. If you think about it, their real sort of heyday for food is late summer, going into autumn. Right now there's a few shoots about and odds and ends, but they're still quite hungry. And I've noticed, particularly because there was so much natural food around last autumn and winter, they've only just really started hitting the feeders, in significant numbers. So yeah, don't give up on it. So my usual approach is to focus on an area that I know the squirrels are active. I'll probably actually see them there, but I'll also be looking out for drays. I'll put up my feeder. As most of you will know, I use feeders made by Keith's High Seats. I've made my own in the past and I've used other brands, and in all honesty, they usually end up rotting or getting chewed to pieces by feeders. The ones from Keith's High Seats are absolutely bulletproof. So I'll put that feeder up, high enough to be out of the way of deer, but low enough to be able to refill without too much trouble. And I'll load it with peanuts. Now, if you've got a bait that works better for you than peanuts, stick with it. In my opinion, peanuts are the best bait to use. And I will then leave that feeder for a few days, undisturbed. Hopefully the squirrels will find it. Now, back in the day when I was using feeders I made myself, usually you'd get a few songbirds visit, and then the ones from Keith's High Seats have a lid on the feed tray which actually stops you losing feed to songbirds, but you don't get that early activity that attracts the squirrels. Sometimes I might jam the tray open, other times the squirrels just find their own way. I get the odd woodpecker still manages to work out how to extract a few peanuts, but as I've said, that's not a great problem because the activity of that coming and going will attract grey squirrels. So, first visit back to the feeder after a few days, I will hope that the peanuts have gone down a bit. That lets me know that more than likely grey squirrels have arrived. Hopefully, all being well, also you'll see some of the little dry brown husks on the ground. That's a clear sign of squirrels. They don't like to eat that part of the peanut, so they'll discard it. Once they start stacking up, you know you've got a few squirrels coming. So, if I'm convinced that squirrels are onto the feeder, I'll then go ahead and build a hide. Now I want to make sure that is a comfortable shooting distance from where I've got the feeder. I need to make sure it gives me a clear view of the feeder. Preferably I also want to be able to see the ground beneath the feeder so I can check that squirrels are cleanly shot when I shoot them, and obviously I need to make sure also that I'm shooting in a safe direction. Once I've got the hide in place, I will then usually keep the feeder going for another week or so before I actually shoot it. Now again, that's all about allowing that activity to build up and build up. The more squirrels that you have coming and going, the more that will attract the attention of other squirrels, pull them in from a wider area, and then when you do actually shoot, you should get bigger numbers and clear a bigger area. That is the basic approach. There are other little quirks and things that you can work out. Maybe use a trail camera to work out at what time of day the squirrels are most active around your feeders, whether it's morning, midday, evening. But by and large, if you use that basic approach, you should get the squirrels queuing up and shoot plenty. Right then, so before I settle into the hide for this shoot, I will just run through the kit that I'm going to be using to save you from having to ask. So the gun is my FX DRS Classic, 177 caliber, sub 12 foot-pounds, more than enough gun for this kind of shooting. Yeah, very accurate, very dependable. I'm really, really happy with it. I use it a lot. And as I've mentioned before, I've dropped this one into a form stock. The standard stock is perfectly good. I just think this one looks absolutely beautiful. And again, I'm often chopping and changing between different optics for reviewing and things like that. The push button height adjustable cheek piece just means whatever scope I've got on board, I can adjust that and get correct eye scope alignment. Ammo wise, I'm running the DRS on QYS dead center pellets. As I said, it's 177 caliber. I'm running it on the 10.4 grain version. They work an absolute treat with this gun. Very, very accurate, and yeah, nice and hard hitting too. I have got the Eagle Vision Cam Helia moderator on here. Being sub 12, it's a relatively quiet gun anyway, but yeah, with this moderator, it is nigh on silent. Does a great job. Optics wise, I've got my ever faithful Hawke Sidewinder 30 SF. Been using this scope for years. Really, really rate it. Again, I've mentioned this in other videos, but I shoot scope cam through the scope to show you the action, but please don't take that as a gauge of the image quality. It's always reduced because we're filming through a tiny lens on the GoPro. What you would see through this scope without a camera mounted would be much sharper and much brighter. And yeah, as ever, I've got the scope mounted with Sports Match scope mounts. You can see that I've actually got some Picatinny to dovetail adapters on here. So the DRS on this one, I've got a dovetail rail. That's just because I often use this scope for accuracy testing on other guns. I've had it on a gun with a Picatinny rail, hence I've got Picatinny mounts on here, and I've just got an adapter just so I could whip it back on the DRS and zero it back up. And yeah, that is the main setup. I'm going to get myself tucked into the hide now and hopefully put it to good use. Well, that was a classic example of a squirrel coming to the feeder. There's no need to be in a rush. Most of the time, you just want to sit and wait for them to grab a peanut and settle to feed. You get a nice straightforward shot like that. Now, a great thing is, because you get to choose how far away you sight your hide from the feeder, you can dictate the range you're shooting over. So if you're only confident of being precise out to 20 metres, just make sure that your hide is only 20 metres from the feeder. It couldn't be easier. I've got to say, I'm not entirely sure what was going on with that one. I'm usually in the habit of waiting for squirrels to settle properly at the bait station, but that one seemed reluctant to actually visit the feeder and take a peanut, and I just decided to go ahead and take the shot at it where it was, just in case it got spooked and cleared off. Well, that one was an absolute sitter, just sat there munching away, which is just what you want. I was able to get it right between the eyes, lights out. Now, I don't know if you can pick up on it, there's a bit of background noise here. We've had dogs barking, somebody's banging a post or something in the distance. There's a railway line not far away and even a road, but in all honesty, those things are really useful because obviously we're making noise filming, I'm talking to the camera, and that ambient noise is just helping to mask that, and it appears that the squirrels are nice and confident. Well, that was a bit irritating. So much for me saying the squirrels were confident, but I've got a feeling that one was distracted by the dead squirrels on the deck. It doesn't seem to have gone far, so hopefully it'll soon be back on the feeder. That's better. I've got a feeling that was the same squirrel as had just passed by the feeder without settling, but it was much more committed that time and paid the price. Another absolute sitter there. I think it's demonstrating just how effective a means of controlling grey squirrels this sort of ambush is, and I think it's really worth pointing out that I'm not shooting for sport here, I am shooting for pest control. These squirrels, they're an invasive species and they're causing a lot of damage. So I need to hit them as hard as I possibly can. Ultimately it'd be great to eradicate them, but in all honesty we're just looking to drive down numbers as low as is feasibly possible. And you know, a lot of people will say an approach like this is unsporting, and to all intents and purposes they're correct, but what it does is creates a honeypot area where I can expect a lot of shots in a relatively short space of time. And also it's very humane. I've already mentioned the fact that you can dictate how far you are taking your shots. I'm sat down, I'm relaxed, I'm shooting off of sticks. My shot placement is absolutely spot on. So it's a very effective way of ensuring clean, humane kills rather than taking chancy shots. So yeah, it certainly gets the job done. Right, we've had a very long, uneventful wait since that last shot, so I think I will wrap it up here. It's unusual really, because typically I would expect the shooting to become busier as the light fades, because squirrels usually like to have a binge before it gets dark. I think what might actually be the case here is there are a lot of tawny owls in these woods, and I wonder if the squirrels might have learnt to stay away from the feeders once the light starts to dip. But, you know, we've had a pretty productive session. All of these squirrels are destined for a local birds of prey centre where they will be used to feed the birds, and obviously because they're headshot, the people that work there know that they only need to cut the heads off of them and there's no risk of lead contamination to those birds. I'm under no illusion that there's still plenty of squirrels to be shot here, so after I've picked up I will refill the feeder and I'll be back again in the hide very soon. The sharp-eared among you will have noticed that I got my initials muddled up when describing my ammo in that video. I meant to say JTS, dead centre pellets. Right then, next up, let's take a look at the BSA Meteor CLX. What I have here is what I would describe as a good value, mid-price, spring-powered airgun. It's the BSA Meteor CLX. Distributed in the UK by Rangerite, it has a recommended retail price of just £350. Now, I reckon it would make a great first airgun, or maybe if you're a PCP shooter and you want to try a Springer, maybe for some informal plinking. This is a very nicely proportioned little airgun. It's about 104 centimetres from end to end with the supplied silencer fitted and 87 without it. It weighs just a shade over 2.8 kilos, which should make it manageable for just about all shooters, teenagers included. It's just a very nicely styled gun, along the lines of a traditional sporter but with a few nice modern twists. This little Springer boasts a beach stock made by Minelli, and I really like it. The fore end is nice and long and has a lovely forward sweep at the front. It's also got decent panels of tidy stippling on both sides. The pistol grip feels great in the hand. I've found it comfortable to shoot thumb up or thumb around, and it's also got a decent sized scallop to accommodate the lower part of your thumb, and it has that same tidy stippling on both sides. The rear section of this Airgun Extra stock is equally well sculpted. So the cheek piece is very nicely contoured. It's also good and high, and that means that you've got decent eye scope alignment on this scope only airgun. So the actual butt section is very tidily finished with a nice little black spacer before you get to the squashy black butt pad, and the cushioning in that pad is a nice touch on what is a recoiling airgun. The metalwork on the Birmingham made Meteor CLX is very tidy, and overall build quality feels really solid throughout. It has got a 255mm barrel that's available in 177 or 22 calibers, and it's BSA's famously accurate
cold hammer forged barrel. So it's finished with a 1/2 inch UNF thread, and as I've already mentioned, this gun is actually supplied with a slimline silencer, and it does actually provide a bit of sound suppression. Even more significantly, I think though, it provides a little bit more grip, and obviously that extra length gives you more leverage for the cocking stroke. Scope mounting is via a dovetail rail, and the Meteor CLX is actually equipped with BSA's recoil reduction rail. Now that system actually helps to absorb some of the recoil from the movement of the gun's spring and piston action to help to protect your scope. Now, I've been using 2-piece mounts with this one, and I've experienced no problems whatsoever with scope creep or zero shift. This gun features a new and improved adjustable 2-stage trigger. So its blade has a gentle curve and a grooved flat face. As ever, I've tested it on its factory setting and I've been really impressed. It's certainly better than what I would usually expect to find on a gun at this price point. So the first stage is quite light, but it has a fair amount of travel to it, and that comes to an unmissable stop point. That's followed by the second stage brake, which is crisp and absolutely predictable. There is a simple but perfectly effective rocker type safety catch positioned towards the rear of the cylinder, just above the trigger blade. Now, live quarry shooters will be pleased to know that it is very quiet in operation. You pull it back into the safe position and then thumb it forwards when you're ready to take the shot. Cocking and loading this little brake barrel is really simple. The stroke is relatively smooth and should be manageable even for younger shooters. So at the end of the cocking stroke, the barrel clunks really securely into position, and it also features an anti-bear trap mechanism to keep your fingers safe while you're loading the pellet directly into the breech. Once it's loaded up, you simply swing the barrel back up into position where it locks into what feels an extremely secure retainer. The Meteor CLX is a full power airgun. The .22 caliber review gun is running at around 11.3 foot-pounds with BSA Gold Star pellets. It's doing it pretty consistently, with variation remaining within 11 feet per second over a 10-shot string. It's quite a nice firing cycle too. Now, it's got the sort of recoil that you would expect from a mid-price brake barrel, but it's fairly clean and without too much reverberation. Accuracy-wise, this little airgun actually punches harder than I'd originally expected. Now, you're not going to win top flight competition with a 350-pound Springer, but nonetheless, I'd kind of assumed that this gun was going to be a backyard tin toppler. And although it's absolutely brilliant for that, it's actually capable of a bit more. And you should be able to expect, if you do your bit, 1/2 inch groups at 20 yards, which means if you're sensible with your ranges, this little airgun is capable of pest control. Most importantly, the BSA Meteor CLX is brilliant fun to shoot. I absolutely love the simplicity of the self-contained power plant within a brake barrel Springer, and this airgun just completely epitomises that. Now, it's got a nice trigger, a lovely stock, it's kind on the eye, and it comes supplied with that slimline silencer. That all adds up to a brilliant value package, and you've got the reassurance of BSA's proven pedigree.
The Great British Shooting Show hits the NEC Birmingham from the 12th to the 14th of February 2027, the UK's biggest and best shooting event. Buy tickets online today.
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for this week, but as always, we have got much more to come. Thanks again to Crackshot. There is a link to their website in the show description, and thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and do also give us a follow on the Airgun Extra Facebook page. We use it to keep you bang up to date with everything we're up to. As I've said, we've got much more to come. Until then, enjoy your shooting and stay safe.